about fears. Let's talk about love. Yeah, I got fears, but I ain't got no love.
All right, in this episode of Mystery at Carlsbad Tavern, we are going to explore a drug angle here. Now, remember, in most of my assessments, I believe that it's either greed, sex, or revenge. And greed would fall under, or drugs would fall under the greed category. So I got to be honest and say I did not put a lot of stake in this potential scenario. I know about Greg selling drugs and being busted in 2010, and then him dying in 2016 in prison, and the large amount of weight that he was moving. But I was under the impression, and I believe now that I was wrong, that Greg wasn't moving a lot of weight back in 1991. I think I had the wrong impression of that. Sometimes, as I said, people graduate. You know, they start as drug users, go to selling an 8 ball at a time, and move to ounces and kilos, whatever, however far up the ladder you go. Greg was arrested, I believe, in like '89 on a high-speed chase when he had drug paraphernalia on him and he was drunk. He's definitely using. There's no doubt. But him becoming a major drug dealer, I didn't think would happen until later, after Brenda's disappearance. But I've had people reach out to me and tell me that's not exactly true. Had a girl reach out to me who used to work cleaning houses with Brenda. Remember, she had the Mary Maid thing service. And this was happening in her transition from Williamsport to State College. And this girl said Brenda would come and pick her and another girl up all the way from State College to Williamsport and then drop them off at their houses to clean. And then Brenda would disappear. It's ironic, I hate saying that, for many hours. And they didn't know where she went. The girl said she asked her coworker about this, and she says that there's drugs in that cleaning van. There's cocaine, to be specific. I also got information that we had talked to Brenda's sister, okay? And we've talked to Brenda's best friend and obviously Todd, her son. And all three, and Pam, remember Aunt Pam, all saying that Brenda was smoking weed when she was with her first husband, Tom. We got information they were selling weed as well. That's not a big leap, but I've only had one person come and tell me that. So for Brenda to make the leap into selling cocaine is not that hard for me to believe. Now you have to understand, out of the multitude of cases that I've looked at, unsolved homicides, missing persons, I would tend to say 90% of them that I look at end up being on the sex side of the spectrum. Just seems like that's the type of cases they are. So statistics bear it out. And I don't always go with statistics, but Brenda was good looking. She was alone. She's a female. I guess that was my bias coming into this. And I'm still not ruling that out yet. But I will say that this drug angle is taking me down a different path than what I thought I was going to go down to. And the reason, one of the biggest reasons for that is because of the check that she had gotten from her aunt the morning of her disappearance. Now, I've received an email, a tip from somebody who said, hey, listen, I work with her aunt, or I did. She's deceased now. And she told me that it was $2,000. And she felt that Brenda ran away. And she got that money and ran away. But I've had other people email me and say, no, the amount was only around $100, $200. Listen, that's a big difference. And that has to be figured out. Now, the police know this, but obviously the police are not cooperating with me. Okay, I've had multiple people reach out that knew the police officers initially took this report, and none of them have contacted me. One, it's because they don't care, or two, they did a piss poor job and they don't want it brought out. I think probably it's a combination of both. They don't want to help me out. I got an email this morning from somebody saying, yeah, some of the police officers up here from Center County, they don't like you. Well, listen. Nobody has complete friendship from everybody. It's impossible. And I've noticed the bigger you get and quote unquote fame wise, the more people dislike you that never even met you. Now, as I become more and more involved in the study of Jesus, I realize there's a lot of people obviously did not like him. Now, I'm not comparing myself to the man up above. I would never do that. But even somebody that has the best intentions gets frowned upon. And jealousy is real. So, listen, I don't care. She said some of the cops don't like. I don't care if all the cops didn't like me. I did nothing to them but bring this case to the forefront and use transparency and investigate this case because that's what I do. So if they want to get their panties in a bunch because of it, oh well. People that know me know that I really don't care. My focus here is on Brenda Condon. I don't care if she sold drugs. I don't care if she used drugs. She's a victim in my eyes. Period. End of story. It's my job. I took it upon myself to try to figure this out. Maybe I will, maybe I won't, but at least I gave it effort. And sometimes in this world, that's all that matters. So, this amount of this check that she, again, the cops would know that. I don't know it. If it is $2,000, I'm interested, is what I'll say. Because she cashed the check, okay? Which means I found out which bank she was using, which I believe was Clearfield National Bank. I'm not 100% sure on that. I'm still working that angle. But she gets, the morning of her disappearance, she gets the money from her aunt. She tells her aunt that it's for a car payment, that she's been late. And remember, through victimology, she was always punctual, always responsible. But now she's starting to be late on some things. Late on payments, late on no-shows for jobs, not in her character. Now she goes down and borrows money from her aunt. Let's just say it is $2,000. That's a lot for a car payment. Did she tell her aunt that? Apparently that was what's published in the newspaper. So I have a hard time believing it's $2,000. That's a lot. Wouldn't her aunt question that? Hey, $2,000's a lot. Maybe not. Who knows? But let's say she's got it. She's got a check now for $2,000 from her aunt made out to her, Brenda Louise Condon. She has to go to her bank to cash that. So she goes to her bank. More than likely, I don't know this for a fact, but more than likely, where her car payment or personal loan is also from that very bank. So when she cashes it, she should pay onto the late payments right there and then. But she doesn't. That's huge. That's a big clue. Instead, she takes the cash and leaves. The check was cashed. The money for the late payment never made it to the bank, which means we have possibly $2,000 missing. If it's not $2,000, whatever the amount of the check was, is missing. Where did that go? So, this drug angle. So today, we're going to be talking to a gentleman who knows Greg, hung out with Greg, was friends with Greg, says Greg would never hurt anybody. However, it's the drug world that Greg has come to grow into. And it's that we're going to look into. This person who doesn't want to be identified warns me right off the bat, hey, this is no joke. These guys are scary and this and that. He's scared. He doesn't want his name out there. He doesn't want his voice out there. So I have to alter his voice as well. But he tells a very plausible story of Greg losing $50,000 and then Brenda goes missing. Greg gets hit in the face with a lead pipe as a message. All these things that are verifiable, and they are verified. Now, I'm not one for rabbit holes, and I don't like convoluted type of information coming in, But sometimes things are not always straightforward. And it's possible that Brenda disappeared, A, on her own recognizance, which I still have a hard time with, or B, she disappeared because of her drug dealings. Hers and Greg's. Remember, they are partners. It ain't like they've just been together for a month. 2 years they've been together. She's only been living with him for 2 months, but they've been together for 2 years. And this witness sees them at a party together. He was invited to Greg's place for a party. He sees Brenda. He sees some drug dealing type of things. Whatever the one part of the relationship is into, the other person's going to be into as well, or it won't work. And by all accounts, from the Merry Maid cleaners, Brenda was dealing drugs on that route for Greg. Is it possible she was dealing cocaine out of that bar? Very possible. We still got to learn a little bit more about Carl, and we'll get into him. But this is a drug aspect and a drug tip that I find, again, I get tons of information in. You got to be able to sort out the bullshit, okay? And, like my boyfriend and his friend was there. They killed her because she wouldn't give us sex. And so my boyfriend said that he took her up to a mountain and put her in a barrel of acid. Listen, I'm not giving that any credibility. Why? He's a janitor. We're what's he getting a vat of acid just going to be up at a mountaintop somewhere? Okay, things like that. If you want, you got to give better tips than that. So, but this one, I am familiar with this individual. I will say that he is very credible, and that's the reason I talked to him. And he was brave enough to come forward with this story. Even 33 years later, he's scared about it. But as I said in the beginning, don't be scared about giving your tips. Let me take on that freight. Let me take on that burden. And he took a major step in doing that. So watch, listen, and we'll go from there. Okay? Thanks for watching. Mains out.
I gotta take my hat off to you for this story that you're doing, but I have to warn you. You may record this if you want to, but nobody must hear what I'm about to say because I'm very worried about my safety, and I'm going to warn you. You are putting your foot into a very dangerous situation here. More than Brenda have died out of this.
Okay, well, I'm all ears.
Okay. You wanted to know what Clint knew and asked us. So let's start there, and then I'll go to what Clint didn't know.
Okay.
So Clint came in to our house. Joyce kicked Greg out because she came home one day, a bonded bank manager, and he was doing coke on her table. And she said, "That's it. I could lose my job over this. You can't be doing this." She kicked him out. I was Greg's best friend, and Greg was getting deeper and deeper in trouble. Clint came in and he told us, "You guys both have to stay away from Greg. Don't even get involved with him. He's a dirtbag and really bad things are going to happen." I'm his best friend. I can't believe it. And then Clint tells us Greg was in a band the leader of called Little Davy and the Drill Creams. They opened for Sha Na. And Clint told us at that time Greg got addicted to heroin and went in rehab. I never knew this. And then he told us he's pretty sure that doesn't think that Greg did it, but he thinks it has something to do with Greg. And then he told us the story about that you didn't know, I guess. That yes, her boots were off in the bathroom, and somebody said, "Oh well, she was shooting up," and everybody said Greg offered $25,000 reward to find out who did it. And then Clint told us that yeah, her car was still parked there, and there were no tracks to it. And there was only in the snow one set of tracks the next morning when they came in to open up. And it was a man's boot prints, and it went out to what looked like a large vehicle, probably a truck. And so he carried her.
Who is Clint that he knows this information?
Clint was the leader of a badass biker group in State College, and he was a tracker and he was a bounty hunter. Greg put up the $25,000 bounty. Clint did not like Greg, and he wanted to collect that bounty, number one. And number two, he knew who Brenda was, and he really wanted to solve it.
Okay. So he goes to the bar and starts interviewing people, or how's that work? Did he tell you?
He interviewed the police, and he interviewed the people who opened up the bar the next morning. It was on a Tuesday, so he interviewed the people who were there the next morning.
Okay. And what's Clint's last name?
I don't know, and he's dead.
Okay.
He died 3 years ago. So that's what Clint told us. Now, you need to walk through a story here that might seem a little complex, but I think you need to know this.
Okay.
Greg started doing cocaine. I knew his family. I used to go to the gas station when he started it. I helped him with electronics there, and I got a lift and to use when I wanted it help. Greg started doing more and more cocaine. His mother, he moved into the apartment S building right beside Greg Sunoco, and I stopped coming around when he started doing it too much. His mother vacuumed his apartment and found $50,000 under his couch. He told me she took it. And she told him she destroyed it because it was dirty money. I knew the family pretty well. I knew his brothers, and I had dinner at their house sometimes, and his father was, it doesn't matter, that doesn't matter. So, Greg's out $50,000, and all I'm thinking is, how in the hell are you going to pay this back? What are you going to do? You owe that money to somebody. So, before I know it, Greg buys a new condo built for him to his stack, buys his mother a car, and now I'm really wondering where all this money is coming from. And Clint had already told us this guy's really dangerous. Greg had one drug dealer and left him. He got another drug dealer, just a kid. And all I'm thinking is, this is so dangerous. I took Greg to his new apartment condo in his car with me driving, and a policeman stopped us and held me at gunpoint and said, I know there are arms in the car. And he knew I wasn't Greg. He didn't even look at my driver's license. Greg was suspended at the time, DUI. And Greg said, there's an antique shotgun in the back. And the cop said, yeah, I know, we watched you load it in the car at noon today. So they've been watching him. Later on, Greg has an apartment party, a housewarming party, and in comes a guy who had been busted and turned people in. He gets out of a big black Chevy Blazer, a la DEA, I'm thinking, walks into the house, and I said, Mike, you can't drive. You're suspended. And he said, no, I walked. And I said, well, it's 18 degrees out. There's no snow on your coat. He doesn't know I know how I got there. So I gave him a big hug, and he's freaking wired. Now I'm thinking, now I know Greg's really in trouble, and that's it. I never saw Greg again after that. But here's what happens next. Greg gets hit, and I think you need to look this up and find out what the date was. Greg's riding on his bicycle, and he gets hit with a pipe in the head so bad that it gave him brain damage. They tried to kill him, and his speech was slurred, and he limped after that. So, I was already done with him. Joyce was done with him, and this is around it. You need to look at the date of that, when that happened. It would be in the papers.
Yep.
So, one of his technicians decides he's going to find out who did it. And I decided I'd try to find out too. Well, John figured out it was a guy named Marco, M-A-R-C-O, that's all we know of him by, in Bellefonte. He's a muscular, big guy with dirty blonde hair and a tattoo on a snake tattoo on his one arm. He was a drug dealer. And it was not long after that Greg got whacked in the head. But it was many months after that Greg got whacked in the head. So I go to the place called a Handlebar. It's a bar in Pleasant Gap. And one night, I come in, and there is the Bronco painted in dark red primer with New Jersey plates that Greg described. I went in and I sat down near the table of these two guys I didn't recognize talking to a third person. And I heard the one guy say, yeah, man, we hit him right in the head. We hit him with a pipe. That's what he said. We hit him with a pipe. So, okay, they're trying to bump Greg off. At this time, Greg had the $25,000 bond posted for Brenda. When I came to the housewarming party, there were 3 girls in the kitchen making hors d'oeuvres, and I started helping them. Brenda was there. And I went in the back room. There's this new drug dealer, and the new drug dealer, just a kid, is with 3 or 4 people I never saw, and I just came in and walked out. And somebody was trying to kill Greg. I don't know if it was this guy Marco. And I don't know if that had anything to do with them knocking off Brenda when they couldn't get to Greg. That's number one. But in particular, I know Marco put the hit out on Greg, and he intended to kill him.
Why?
I think the $50,000 was supposed to go to Greg. I mean to Marco. And Greg changed to drug dealers. And he made a lot of money, because after that he gave his mother a car and bought this Hondo, and he didn't do it on the money he made from the gas station. And I think Marco just figured enough is enough. But Brenda was at that party when he had the housewarming party before he was hit with the pipe. And I'm just thinking, you know what? They didn't kill him with the pipe. Maybe they took Brenda.
Okay.
This is all hearsay stupid, but...
Right, you never know.
Yeah, and it's a really tough road to follow for you.
They always are, man.
Have you found anything that's significant beyond the money that she took out on her car? I didn't know her aunt gave her money. I know she took out money on the car. Clint ran the VIN number of the car and found that out.
Well, not really. I mean, I'm trying to figure out the amounts. You know, that's important. If she only borrowed $200 from her aunt, well, that's a lot less significant than $2,000.
You pursue this, and you're risking your life.
Well, I mean, I worked undercover for the FBI and half my career, 10 years. So, I mean, it's no big deal to me, you know, to deal with these people. So they don't intimidate me at all. But what I got to try to find out is, you know, most murder disappearances are either greed, sex, or revenge. I initially thought that this was a sexually motivated crime, but I don't know anymore.
Yeah, well, the timing of everything that you told me makes it think like, okay, she's gone with her purse and the money.
Right.
So money isn't. But they didn't touch the cash register, so that doesn't make sense.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, so, I mean, I got to find more people that work at the bar, that work there. Crazy Carl is telling me that, hey, I had a doorman there that night. She told him to go home. But that doesn't make sense to me because it was a Tuesday night. Why would you have a doorman? There's hardly anybody there. So I don't know if Crazy Carl is just getting up there in age and can't remember or if he's lying on purpose.
Well, they had a person usually at all those places to make card people and make sure they're okay. And just as a guard in general, but I don't know. You're right, I don't know. And that was a big place. I mean, I did sound for Foghat there.
Okay.
Foghat wanted to walk out because they didn't like the sound system, and Carl got me. I brought an amplifier in that I fixed for Carl for their sound system. And he said, well, I can't pay you, but I'll give you 4 tickets. I said, Carl, the concert starts in 20 minutes. What am I going to do with 4 tickets? I just want my money. Carl and I were friends from way back, but Carl's a scumbag.
Yeah, people always say that he's real shady, but I don't know. They don't tell me any details.
Well, he never paid me for anything I did, and I'll trade you for beer. And I said, I don't want beer. And he paid me eventually, and he was sued by the guy who did his HVAC and who did his coolers at the Brick House Tavern. He didn't pay him, and Gretzler Electric, and Gretzler sued him. He never got over that.
Yeah.
And he was a really weird guy.
Yeah, he definitely gives off that vibe of being different for sure. Even today, I mean, when I talked to him last week. So, that's for sure. A lot of people point the finger at him.
Yeah, but I don't think it was him. He's crazy, but he's not that way. I don't know.
Yeah.
I wondered when he didn't call you back for your 6 o'clock show and then called you at the end. I didn't do it. I don't know anything about it. It's like, oh, God.
Yeah.
Carl pretended to be a Navy SEAL for a long time. And then one night, I was in there doing open mic for him. And a real Navy SEAL came in and almost killed him.
Wow, good.
Oh, I was impressed.
Yeah.
Well, Carl worked administrative. He never did active duty. entertainment was his life. He did the Gentleman's Lounge or something. He did Hard Rock Cafe. He got sued for that. The people who ran the Hard Rock Cafes came and owned them, came and told him, hey, we really like your idea, but you can't do this. In State College, that was.
Yeah.
And Carlsbad Tavern. It was one club after another, and it was always all about entertainment. That was what he wanted to do. And he's been talking to me since he's in Florida and said he's just looking for another scam to do where he can run a club or something.
Right. Yeah, well, I'm curious of why Carlsbad closed down so quick after this disappearance. I mean, it was only 4 months later, and he was done.
I didn't know it was that quickly. I really did not. At that time, and Carl owes me money for an amplifier, so I deliver it back, and he won't pay me. It's just Carl all over again to me. Then I stopped dealing with Carl because how many times do you want to get robbed?
Right, right.
They tried to kill Greg, whoever it was. I am.
Well, did Greg... So he never confirmed he lost his $50,000? He just said his mom took it?
I asked his mom, and she said she destroyed it.
Does that sound reasonable?
No.
Right.
But she told me she did. She said it's dirty money, and then she asked me. She accused me of supplying him with drugs. I said, Mrs. B, you'll notice that I don't come around here for months at a time because Greg's getting involved in drugs, and I don't want to be part of it. And then I just stopped seeing him, period, because, well, the whole thing, I had already stopped seeing him when Clint came and said, stay away. They're really dangerous people. He's really bad. You're going to get in trouble. And Greg finally got busted in his house. Oh, by the way, when that cop held the gun at my face, in his car, Greg's car, that's the first time anybody ever held me at gunpoint.
Yeah.
And then I found out Greg had knocked out a state college policeman years before, who was chasing him to his house. Greg got his Corvette in the house, and the garage door closed, changed his clothes. Greg told me this too. And so did the cops in State College, and it's true. Guy came to his door and tried to push his way into Greg's house, and Greg said, not without a warrant. And the guy kept pushing, and Greg said he knocked him out. Punched him right in the face and knocked him out. So I had no idea I was dealing with people on this level, honestly. And just decided the best thing to do is leave Greg alone. And I know I took you through a very tangled web, but somehow I think that Marco or Uncle Ed has something to do with this.
Okay.
And I didn't know that Greg was on heroin previously. And you know, Greg eventually got put in prison.
Right.
Yeah.
You know the details of that?
I mean, I know it was BNI, Attorney General's office.
They knocked down his door, and out the back ran a state college policeman. They came in Greg's house. They found a lot of cocaine, and they ran down the state college policeman who went out the back door and caught him with $60,000.
Never heard that.
Oh, this is all true. I know this is true because his brother told me.
Mario.
Yes.
How's he? Is he decent?
I haven't talked to him for quite a while, but Mario is really decent.
Okay.
Did you talk to Greg after this happened with Brenda?
No. The last time I saw Brenda and Greg was at that housewarming party, and when I saw that they were doing drugs, decided I've got to stay away from this. I stopped. It was over.
Did you see Brenda doing drugs?
Never.
Okay. But she was just there.
She was there. She was cooking. I don't know if she went in the back room and did drugs. I stayed away from that.
Okay.
How about like Greg's family? They ever say anything to you about what they thought happened to Brenda?
Never.
No.
They didn't discuss it. And Mario said he has no idea what happened. And after Greg's mother accused me of supplying him with drugs, that's when I said, you know what? When you don't see me coming around for months at a time, you know it's because he's on drugs again.
Well, what was Greg's temperament? I mean, would he be able to kill somebody?
He was a happy-go-lucky goofball.
Okay.
No, I don't ever see that in him. Although, you know, I say that on one hand, and then on the other hand, he knocked out a state college police officer.
Right.
So, you know, I don't know. What happens to you when you do enough drugs?
Yeah. Well, was he possessive of his girlfriends?
No.
No.
No, that was just a joke to him.
Okay.
Yeah, I just found it odd that within a day or two he says he's going to put up $25,000. That's a large amount for 1991.
No shit. You gotta ask yourself. He and his mother told me he just lost $50,000, and within 6 months, he buys her a new car, and then another year, he moves into a condo that was built for him. He was making a lot of money somehow, and I know this kid. I was at the kid's house. It was really strange. The kid's living with his mother. We went upstairs to his bedroom, and he's dealing pretty good amounts of cocaine. But he found somebody else. I don't think he and that kid were still doing it that many years later when Greg got busted and I was here.
Yeah.
The two things that click with me is I know Marco put a hit on Greg, and I'm wondering if he didn't decide if he can't kill Greg, and Greg hadn't been hit yet when he got the new condo, he was still okay. I didn't really see Greg after he got whacked in the head and had speech slurring. Mario told me all that stuff.
Right.
But I just wonder if this guy decided, you know what, I can't get to Greg, I'm going to take her out. Yeah, I hope you unravel it, and please be careful. You know, Marco's already threatened one of us to kill him. But he might even be dead too now.
Well, I'll look into him.
Two remarkable things. Bellefonte, drug dealer, big muscular guy with a
Snake tattoo.
Snake on his arm, and blonde hair. Now, Greg had a friend who came to the gas station a lot. I forget what his name was. With a snake on his arm, but he was short, brown hair. He's a different guy.
Hey, one quick question. If you had to guess, what year do you think that he started selling drugs? 80s?
No, much later. In 95. And I didn't know of him selling drugs, but he had to be. When he met up with this kid, that would be about the time he bought that condo. That would be, you know what? It had to be, in the mid-80s, because there's no freaking way. If he was selling drugs, and I didn't know about it, but if he was, there's no freaking way that he had $50,000 under the couch that his mother got rid of in that Eastgate apartment that he rented in S Building. So, yeah, that would have been in the late 80s.
Okay.
That they had surveillance of him selling drugs out of the parts room in the back of Greg Sunoco.
So there you have it. That's the information we got on this drug angle. A lot of good information, and we'll follow up the best that we can on it. And again, very scared for his safety, and that's why the voice is altered and obviously not showing his face. He doesn't want it. I told you guys, bring me information. You remain anonymous. I'm a man of my word. So this gives a different look, a different feel, a different road to go down. And it has to be followed up on. You know, Greg's dealings, his lifestyle has to be followed up on. And it may lead us to know what happened to Brenda. It may not, but it has to be followed up on. And that's what we'll do. Thanks for watching this episode. Mains out.